Hello, Birthworks couples. I'm excited that you guys are taking this class. By taking this class, you guys are really doing yourselves a service for just gaining knowledge and support for whenever you guys go to have your babies. So I'm excited that you guys are here. I am just going to jump on and share my story a little bit. So my name is Megan Martin, and thank you, Sarah, for inviting me to share. I just want to share a little bit of a background. I have three kids. They are 6, 4, and 1. And I have my first birth was a C-section, and my two births after that were VBACs. So the C-section birth, I went into having not taken any formal birth knowledge class at all, whether natural or even just hospital in general. And I just knew nothing about birth. I had an OB who I trusted at the time, and I thought, she knew things, so I was just going to go on her knowledge. And that kind of threw me into just pretty much the route to having a C-section for really non-medical reasons. So that really kind of jump-started me into, my desire for a natural birth or a vaginal birth. And just because, if anything else, the recovery from the C-section was quite traumatic, both mentally and physically. So I just started to educating myself, and that's whenever I reached out to Sarah late in my pregnancy, in my second pregnancy. I was 36 weeks when I realized that I had gone with the same OB, and I was like, okay, she's gonna support my birth choices. And at about 36 weeks, whenever I had an ultrasound showing that my baby was going to be big again, I just knew that she wasn't going to support my birth choices. So I fired my provider at 36 weeks. I switched over to Mercy Birthing Center, and I hired Sarah as my doula. Now, the second pregnancy, I still had no formal natural birthing training or birthing training of any sort. The only experience I had to go off of was my C-section birth. So I was quite... I had no tools in my toolbox. I had no way to cope with any pain. And I definitely didn't plan on getting an epidural during that birth, because my fear of getting the epidural at that point in time was that it could possibly lead to another C-section if that was the case. So needless to say, once I went into labor with my second, it was quite chaotic. And I did not know how to manage the pain well. But all in all, at the end of the day, it was successful. I did have a VBAC. Fast forward to my third birth, which I call my my miraculous. The other one was miraculous also for other reasons, but for me, it was my perfect birth because it was everything that I wanted. I did it. It was like at the end, whenever it was over, I'm like, I did it. It was amazing. It was completely all natural. And I just, with the knowledge of the difference between the first two births and my last birth was honestly my knowledge skills, my tools that I had learned in my Birthworks class. Like, they're absolutely priceless, guys. Like, I can't even tell you what knowledge can do for you. So my third birth, I had, like I said, all natural, and basically literally myself. There was no interventions taken. They tried to monitor her because they like to strap monitors. Like, to be real, as a C-section mom, you will always have for lack of better terms, a scar on your name, no matter how many you've had. I have a friend who just had her 8th baby, and her very first birth was a C-section, but that followed her through all 7 consequential births. And it's absolutely amazing to me once you have proven yourself time and time again that they still say, well, I don't know, it's still quite risky. But That's why I so appreciate the Birthworks class, because the knowledge of, true medical informed consent, true risks versus benefits on both sides. You need to know these so you can make, again, your informed decision. At the end of the day, one of the biggest things that you should take away is you are the boss. That's the end of the story. Like, no matter what they say, you're the boss. Even if your decision is possibly the dumbest decision, which it probably isn't going to be. You're probably instinctually very smart and capable of making decisions. But even if your decision was a really dumb decision, you're still the boss. I mean, they cannot do anything without your consent. So just know that even in your most vulnerable moments, no is still a valid response. So there's just like my story and like a snippet. I wanted to like be able to kind of like give you a little bit of an overview. And I will describe my last birth a little bit in length now, just because it was pretty awesome, like from beginning to end. But I want to make sure that I hit some of these points that some questions and stuff. So some things that I had for my birth earlier in my pregnancy. So I knew that from my second pregnancy to my third, I wanted to be able to birth without freaking out. Of course, you're going to have, your ways of coping with pain and vocalizing through things. But I realized that going through labor with my second versus going in labor with my third were two drastically different things. Like with my second, I was out of control. I did not know how to control my breathing because I didn't have the knowledge of that. So I really got behind. I ended up having to use the oxygen or whatever the dizzy laffy gas. I can't remember what it's called, but I ended up having to use that because the only way to keep myself from like hyperventilating or just passing out was to have that to calm my nerves in between. Because with my labor so far, I have found that I don't get that length of time, that early labor where you're like, oh, I think that was a contraction, and then like maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, oh, I think that was another one. Like, just that little, preemptive, oh, I think it's starting to begin. No, when I have labor, it seems like I just go right into active labor. So it's like bam, contraction, and it's quite interesting. I'm thankful because my second birth was 6.5 hours and my third was 3.5. So having short labors is definitely beneficial, but short labors doesn't mean easy labor by any means. So my second labor versus my third was definitely, second one was out of control. I had no way to cope, but having taken the classes and knowing a better skill set, and throughout pregnancy, I don't know where you guys all are in your gestational periods, but I know this is going to sound weird to you, but practice those tools, seriously. Like I called it practicing labor, especially in the shower. I practiced things that I was going to do whenever I went into labor. Like the very first thing I did whenever I was in labor, and I thought to myself, I like really told myself, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of time before I got to go to the hospital. So I'm like, maybe I can chill it out a little bit. I'm just going to get in the bathtub. And then, but obviously I didn't have that kind of time. Pretty much the minute that I got in the bathtub, I knew that I wasn't going to be there for very long. But before, like leading up to those moments, as I would take my shower for the day, I would just practice my breathing and maybe a position that I would have been in, whether it was bent over or whatever, just kind of like letting that water kind of go over my body and just breathing and listening to the music that I wanted to hear during my labor, just to keep in that really calm mind space. Because I don't know if you have gotten to this point in your lessons yet, but keeping that calm mind space is absolutely key, probably to any birth, especially natural birth. But even if you're getting an epidural, if you completely planning a hospital birth whatsoever, a calm mind space is going to be a key tool to making it through quite, victoriously. For lack of a better term, like whenever you're through the end, like you've saved all your energy and you can feel like you've really gotten there, that calm mindset's going to take you through. So the most important things to me while I was making plans for this birth was just making sure that I knew, know what you want. Know what you want. Seriously, make that birth plan and be solid in it. And then make plan B, because labor is very, you can't plan it. None is like the other. You cannot know that your labor is going to be this way. You cannot know that, well, I'm going to wait and I'm going to have, say you're going to have an epidural. I'm going to have it at this point. There's just no way to know how fast your labor is going to be. You can be from a 2 to a 10 in like 10 minutes. There's just no way to plan for that in most scenarios. So I would just have a plan A, have a plan B, know what you want. Like I said, my labor, I don't even know what we went in at, because I didn't even, I was only going to allow them to check me one time, to be real, because checking you for me, honestly, is just pointless, because that's just telling you where you are dilated at that moment. And again, like I said, it could change in the matter of minutes. So, but I went in guns blazing. We got to the hospital at Mersey Birthing Center, which I was a VBAC, so I had to deliver second floor. So pretty much it was a hospital birth for me anyway. After arriving there, pretty much after getting in my room, it was only about 20 minutes later and she was there, 40 minutes later after having arrived at the hospital myself. So there was no time for any kind of intervention had I wanted it anyway. So again, know what you want, have some plans, plan A and plan B. Because I think one of the biggest problems with my very first birth was I only had one plan, and it was like vaginal birth. But, whatever, I was getting an epidural. I was, just letting the doctor do her thing. I had no plan B. So whenever plan B hit me, it was too much of a surprise. And that also probably caused some emotional pain. Some huge helpful choices that I made during pregnancy that helped me, again, were 1, to prepare and practice for labor. 2, health choices are very important. Your nutrition is extremely important, and moving when you can is very important, because the more healthy you are, the easier your labor will be. I mean, if you make you guys know it's common sense. If you make not healthy choices and you get to labor, that'll be a fruit of that. You won't have the stamina. There are just things you'll go through. So I really highly suggest, eating the best that you can. I get it. I was a cookie girl and I ate, my fair share of pizza and whatever, but still, like, get some more fruits and vegetables in. Those are like super, super amazing for not only your body, but for baby. Get to walking. And I cannot tell you the value of a doula. For those of you who may have a doula, I know that, you have an invaluable, what's the word? Priceless, a priceless tool in your toolbox, because what a doula does for you is she supports you in every facet of your labor and pregnancy. She's your support. She's your bodyguard for everything. You make a decision, and let me tell you, whenever you're in labor, your ability to make complex decisions is just not there. That's why having a plan is so important. Like, you are in labor land, you're in such focus that your ability to respond much more than yes and no really just isn't there, unless you're like early in labor. But whenever you're in active labor and close to transition, you are capable of yes and no, and everything else in your mind is get out of my face. So having that bodyguard and that, another thing a doula brings to the room is that sense of calm and peace. she can remind you those tools and things that you've been practicing, with a gentle touch or with a gentle voice and a word. Okay, let's remember, let's get back to breathing. Those are priceless, because whenever things get out of control and you cannot think straight, to have that voice. And I know, I know my husband could have probably been that, but I didn't want to put that pressure on him and count on him to do that, because sometimes he can be forgetful. So I didn't want to that be my fail safe. And also, I wanted him to be dad. I wanted him to be present for the birth and not have to take on such a worker role. So my labor started, as, like I said, we go in lightning fast. I had gone to 41 and 1. So I was like, well, it's literally any day. I was like in the literally any day mindset since about 40 weeks. So I was like, okay, Lord, let it happen soon. And I went to bed that evening, and I was like, I think I'd lost my mucus plug, and I I texted it to my doula. I'm like, woo, things are moving finally. And the birthing center had been bugging me about backup plans, because if I went to 42 weeks, they said they were going to drop me, which was another fun set. Which at that point I was so fed up with some things anyway, and I was over it, that I didn't care. I was literally just going to show up to the hospital. Whoever wanted to be present in my room, feel free, just go stand in your little corner, because I already knew what I was going to do. So I went to bed that evening and woke up at about 12:30 with my first contraction, and they pretty much went nonstop after that. I had gotten in the tub and tried to, I was thinking I was going to calm things down, bring some of the pain down. And I called Sarah, and she heard what was going on by listening to me vocally. She's like, yeah, I think it's probably time. And I'd known the same thing. So we had rushed and we got to the hospital. And honestly, looking back, going through it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But looking back, I'm super proud of myself for utilizing the tools that I had. Because I was really quite calm. It was a completely different picture from the second birth to the third birth. I was very calm, very controlled, and I made it through all the way. And like I said, after I'd gotten to the hospital, I had her within 40 minutes. Even so, my birth plan was completely natural. They wanted to put an IV in my arm for emergency. I told them no. They did not like that. Several times they told me they didn't like that. Did not care. Because again, I'm the boss. So I'm in and I reminded myself, and you guys should know this too. We are in a place where there's Mercy, Mobac, Bab, Barnes. There's so many world-class hospitals, right? If there's a true emergency, if they can't get an IV in your arm, what are they doing there? So 40 minutes, and she was there, sunny side up. That was something that was a huge shock to me, because if you read anything or research anything about a sunny side up baby, they can make your labor longer, and they can be very difficult to deliver. So I think I attribute definitely my position. I was on my knees, leaned over the back of the bed, because it was leaned up. So that was pretty much just on my knees. And that was literally the only position that I could think to go to. That was my instinct. And it took me there, and it was amazing. The comfort measures that I learned in Birthworks that were most helpful to me were breathing. The breathing seriously kept me in the calmest space that I possibly could have been. There's nothing that got out of control, because after every contraction, it was just deep, slow breath, and then through the contraction, just letting it happen. Obstacles that I had to overcome during labor were the staff at one point in time. It was very frustrating because I told them in my birth plan I didn't want the did I call this epidural earlier? The IV. I didn't want the IV in my hand because I did not want to have to mentally think about the pain in my hand and deal with the labor. And I pretty much had come in, probably in about transition anyway. So I didn't want that. And the fact that I had to argue with that while I was deep in labor really kind of ticked me off. But we made it past that. The other moment, it's true when they say you can't handle another minute, it's probably almost done. Because there was a point in time where after all my measures of calmness and as calm as I was like, I cannot take this another stinking minute. Like, I am on fire, the ring of fire, right? Like, I was like, oh, I'm done. So I was done allowing my body to do its thing. So the next contraction, I'm like, I'm pushing as hard as I can. And I did, and she was out. So that was obstacles. Other biggest obstacles, not even just in labor, but during pregnancy. So obstacles I had, obviously, were the mark of being a C-section mom. Everything's risky. But if, in all reality, and all the statistics say that a C-section is still more risky. So other obstacles I had. So I was with Mercy Birthing Center. They were great. The first birth I had with them, the second birth, they really kind of stunk it up. I was really frustrated with how they treated me. They for lack of better terms, just kind of like allowed me to have my way, but they really kind of complained about a lot of things. My third birth was breech at one point in time. And they told me that would be an automatic C-section. But as many of you have probably learned, that it is really just a variation of normal. You can find a provider that probably will deliver a breech baby, which I was willing to do. Just a lot of fear things that they put in my head. But thankfully, having a doula, she was able to bring me back to a great mind space. We had plans. Again, plans are very important. So we made it through. So my pre-care was less than stellar, but we made it. And you can have less than stellar pre-care and have a great support team and do absolutely amazing. So that's why the support team is your greatest asset. My husband, his perception of the labor and birth experience, this was so much better than the first one, because he was able to be fully present. And he was able to catch our baby, our third baby. And that was such an amazing experience. And he got to see just everything and see me through the process and see the difference in me from the second birth to now. And I know that he had much more positive hands-on experience the third pregnancy than the second one, where he was probably worried to death because it probably looked like I was dying with the way that I was acting. So the greatest thing that he did in support, he knew this going in. We called him, he's going to be the water guy, the water boy. And, he did bring the water. But other than that, he stayed there, and just having his presence, that was amazing, that support. So the biggest advice and encouragement that I have for you guys, just to kind of wrap things up, because I don't want to go too long. I probably have already talked enough, but and I wish I could be in person with you guys so I could personally answer your questions. But have that plan and know what you want. Know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then somebody else is going to push what they want on you. They're going to have a protocol for everything, and you're going to get that. I know with my first birth, I got that to the full extent. I got that from birth to postpartum. I got their protocol. I didn't make any choices for my baby. And looking back, that's just absolutely, it's hurtful. So knowing that story versus my third birth, where I made every choice, and every choice has a consequence, right? So I want to make that. I want to be in charge, because I'm the one that is bringing life into the world. I'm the one that's doing all this work. I'm the one that takes this life home and cares for it afterwards. So therefore, I want to make those choices. I don't want some stranger making a choice for me. Um, know what you want, have a plan A, and have a plan B, and be mentally prepared for plan B, because plan B could happen. Plan C could happen. Nobody wants, the lesser plan to happen, but if you're mentally prepared for it, if you know that it could happen, it's a lot easier of a blow to walk into. Practice and know your tool skills. Like, there's a lot of things you could bring into the room with you. You could bring in oils, you could bring in music, you could bring in, anything. But your greatest tool sets is the ones that keep you in that calm mind space, is your breathing and your focus. So be prepared in that aspect. And I know it's silly because you're never going to know what labor feels like till you're in it, but practice labor. Practice those things, practice those tools that you have. I hope I was able to hit everything. I hope I was an encouragement for you guys. This is an amazing asset that you have. And I cannot say enough that if you do not have a doula already, consider one, because they're seriously one of the most valuable things. They're your bodyguard. They're your calm mindset. They bring you back, and they're always there for you throughout your entire pregnancy, through labor, and even postpartum. And I'm thankful to say that Sarah is even a friend beyond that. We just connected in such a way that from time to time we share funny jokes. It's just, she is a friend for life. So I hope that whichever doula that you find and choose can become that for you as well, and just follow you throughout your journey. So I hope you guys have an amazing class. I hope that you guys have amazing, healthy, and births of your dreams. And thank you for allowing me to speak into your lives tonight. So Sarah, we'll just give it right back to you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.